and welcome to Planning by Design. In this video, we are going to cover everything you need to know about the process of applying for planning permission. Unfortunately, applying for planning permission isn't quite as simple as just filling in a form. There are many application types, each is suited to certain projects and circumstances. The different types have different requirements and are assessed differently. It is important to submit the planning application type that will give you the best chance of success. The exact requirements are determined by the project type of application, which local authority you are submitting to, and what constraints are present at the site address. However, there are essential steps common for all applications which we'll cover in detail in this video, including feasibility and planning requirements, architectural design, supporting statements and evidence, application submission, application validation, neighbour comments and objections, design revisions and additional information, application decision approved with conditions. What if your application is refused? Feasibility and planning requirements. The first step in any project is to find out whether planning permission is required. If so, which application type will give the best chance of success? What drawings and supporting documents are required, and also the likelihood of success? Pre-planning advice isn't mandatory but is strongly recommended to limit your risk and expense. After all, who wants to pay for architect drawings or apply for planning permission for something that isn't feasible? To establish the feasibility and requirements for your proposed development, you have two options. You can submit a pre-application to your local planning authority, or a qualified town planner can conduct a planning appraisal. To submit a pre-application for any type of development, you will require drawings to show the property before and after the proposed development. You will also require a detailed written proposal. It's important to bear in mind a pre-application does not grant any approval or pre-approval. It is simply a written response to advise whether permission is likely to be required, what would be required to support a planning application, and an indication of whether in principle it is likely to be approved or not. Alternatively, one of our RTPI accredited town planners can conduct a planning appraisal where we do the same checks as your council, including checking the relevant planning policies, planning history, and any planning constraints at the site address. The difference is that you don't need architect drawings or a detailed written proposal, and we can give you the answers in one day rather than up to 8 weeks. Assuming your project is feasible, once you know which application type is required, what drawings, statements, and supporting evidence are required, you are ready to move on to the next step. Architectural design. Every planning application will require some architect drawings for your local planning authority to assess the design, scale, and impact of your proposed development on the rest of the property and the surrounding area. Even if you are considering a change of use with no structural changes, you will still need to submit architect drawings. This is the only way to demonstrate to the local planning authority what changes, if any, you are proposing to make. Which drawings are required depends on the type of development, the application type you are planning to submit, and your local planning authority's validation criteria. However, most applications require the following as a minimum. Existing and proposed elevations. These are 2D drawings showing each side of the property externally. Existing and proposed floor plans. These are 2D drawings showing the layout of rooms. Existing and proposed block plans. These are maps showing all buildings, access and boundaries for the site. Site location plan. A larger map showing where the property is located. Many other types of drawings could be required, including sections, visibility displays, street scene elevations and more, subject to the specifics of your project. Should you choose to instruct planning by design, our architects aim to have the first draft of your drawings sent for your review and approval within 7 days of receiving your design brief. Supporting evidence. Every application, whether you are constructing something new, extending, making alterations, or changing the use, will require at least one type of statement and possibly additional supporting evidence to limit the risk of an unnecessary refusal. The application type and proposed development determine which statements and supporting documents will be required. However, here is an overview of what is typically the minimum required for any planning application. Planning statement or design and access statement. As a minimum, a planning statement or design and access statement are required with any application. These are normally 4 to 50-page documents justifying how the proposed development meets the required planning policies and should therefore be approved. However, you may also require additional statements such as a heritage impact statement, water management statement, drainage statement, waste management statement, and more, subject to the specific requirements for your application. Submitting an application without the required statements would risk the application being refused unnecessarily. Supporting evidence. Sometimes it is beneficial or even a necessity to submit additional documents as evidence to support your application. For example, if you need to prove existing use over a certain period. There is no definitive list of what evidence will be required, but examples include previous planning history, ownership details, rental contracts, utility bills, and photos, to name just a few. Without sufficient evidence to support your case and prove the required facts, your application could be invalidated or unnecessarily refused. Specialist reports. There are over 30 specialist reports that the Council may request, in addition to the normal architectural drawings and planning statements. These reports include flood risk assessments, wildlife surveys, ecological reports, bat surveys, transport reports, parking surveys, noise assessments, odour assessments, environmental impact assessments, and more. Specialist reports by their nature require highly skilled experts with unique skills and qualifications, so they can be very expensive and can add delay if required. If you apply without the required documents and evidence, the application may be deemed incomplete and could result in your application being invalidated or even refused. Ownership certificate or agricultural land declaration. When submitting an application, one of two important certificates is required: the ownership certificate or the agricultural land declaration. The ownership certificate confirms that you are the legal owner of the property where you want to make changes or additions. The agricultural land declaration is required if your property is located in an agricultural zone, and it confirms that your proposed development will not interfere with any agricultural activities or land use. Should you choose to instruct planning by design, our town planners aim to prepare your supporting statements and evidence ready to submit your application within 7 days of you approving the architectural design. Application submission. Once your architect drawings, supporting statements, and any supporting evidence as required is ready, it is time to submit the application. Submitting the right application type is essential to ensure the best chance of success. Ensuring all the required supporting drawings, statements, and other evidence is submitted in line with the validation criteria is essential to avoid the application being invalidated and avoid delay. All applications are normally submitted via the government's planning portal website. Should you choose to instruct planning by design, our town planners will take care of the whole process for you. Once your application is submitted, they will email you with a link to pay the council processing fee. Application validation. Once you have paid the application fee, the council will begin validating your application. This is where the local authority checks to ensure that all the necessary information and documents have been provided. If everything required has been submitted in line with the validation criteria, your application will be validated. This process can take anywhere from a few days to a couple of weeks. If you fail to submit the minimum required information, the council may invalidate your application. This is when many clients contact us for help. It's important to note that validation and approval are separate stages in the process, and even if your application is made valid, this does not mean that it will be approved. Neighbour comments and objections. Once validated, most planning applications have a 21-day consultation period to allow local government as well as neighbours to comment or object to your proposed development. It is common for objections to be raised during the planning application process. However, objections that stem from emotive reasons such as dislike towards you or the design are unlikely to hold any weight with the local authority. On the other hand, objections that are based on technical planning aspects such as negative impacts on the street scene, environment, noise levels, privacy, security, right to light, or other material considerations could potentially influence the outcome of your application. If objections are grounded in technical reasons related to local or national policies, it may be necessary to provide a formal response in the form of an objection letter. This response should effectively counter-argue their case and provide technical evidence to justify why their objection should be disregarded. Design revisions and additional information. The application may need to be revised during the process due to feedback from local authorities, stakeholders, or the local community. This can involve changes to the proposed architectural design, such as alterations to its size, location, or design. If a local planning authority requests additional information or changes to the proposed design, and we satisfy the request, the application should be approved. If the request is deemed to be unreasonable, then it can be challenged. However, ultimately the decision is at the discretion of the planning officer. Application decision. The time frame for a decision depends on various factors, including the complexity of your application and the workload of the local planning authority. The statutory time frame for local authorities to determine applications is 8 to 13 weeks, depending on the type of application. However, with backlogs in many councils across the UK, it is common for the process to take significantly longer than normal. There is unfortunately no way to expedite the process other than to submit as soon as possible to join the queue. Once the council has assessed your application, including all supporting documents, comments and objections, the application will be approved or refused. Approved with conditions. It is important to note that if your application is approved, it will normally have at least 2 conditions attached. The first is that works must be started within 3 years from the date of approval, and the construction completed within 5 years from the date of approval. However, at the discretion of the planning authority, any number of additional conditions could be applied which may require a second application to discharge or remove the conditions. It is important to note that if you wish to make any changes to the design after the application is approved, you may require additional consent to vary the design. If you build anything other than the approved design, you could be at risk of retrospective planning issues or enforcement action. Once your application is approved, you can move on to the building regulations stage if required, or begin work if building regulations are not required. What if your application is refused? It is important to bear in mind that no one can guarantee planning approval. Ultimately, it is the planning officer who will decide rightly or wrongly. To give some context to this, the national statistic for appeals won is 1 in 3. This literally means that when refusing an application, the local planning authority has made an error in their judgment, at least 33% of the time. If your planning application is refused, there would be 3 options moving forward. You could appeal the decision with the planning inspectorate. This involves submitting additional evidence and arguments to support your case. However, the design can't be altered. Alternatively, it may be possible to resubmit your application with a revised design or additional information for reconsideration. In the worst case, if there is little to no chance of successfully overturning the decision, it may be better to accept the decision or consider an alternative plan. Do you need advice or help with a planning application? Our team of chartered architects and chartered town planners can assist you throughout the entire process. If you would like to find out what exactly your project would require and whether it is feasible, contact us at planningbydesign.co.uk for a free, no-obligation consultation. Thanks for watching. We hope this video has been enlightening for you. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel for more insightful content and hit that notification bell to stay updated on our upcoming videos. We value your thoughts and questions, so feel free to share them in the comments below. Your feedback drives us to create more content tailored to your needs. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy developing.